Good afternoon and welcome to another wonderful Winning Wednesdays. Enjoy the house music as we get set up. Let me see you move the house music.
What's that?
I said, let me see you move the house music. But you don't have it in you?
Huh?
You don't have it in you?
I have lost my touch. I think so.
Can you lose your Africanness?
Huh?
Can you lose your Africanness?
No, never.
All right. So thank you for joining Eunice.
Yeah. Thank thank you for starting and holding it down while I was wrapping up and coming through in here. But welcome to everybody. It's always good to be here. Always good to s- pretty much end our day by spending time with our business, finance, and infinite banking group just to share insights on business, talk a little bit of business and how we are or what we are doing as business owners to be flourishing and making sure that we're getting that money, we're getting the freedoms that we all desire and want. I think today, what I really want to talk about, Lee, is I want to talk a little bit about succession plans.
Mm,
And but before we get into that, I think let's just talk a little bit about one of the things that I have read. You can also share a little bit about what you may have read if you have anything to share. But what I wanted to share a little bit with our audience today is I had a conversation with a potential client, and we were talking about real estate, right? They were concerned that it is in this market, is it really worth it to buy a house? Isn't it better to hold off and keep on renting until I don't know until when, right? And I thought of you because earlier on in the week, or was it a week or two back, we were looking at a graph that was showing us the value of homes from pretty much from 1970 and how almost every year it was the same conversation. The conversation being houses are too expensive right now. It doesn't make sense to buy right now. However, those who transacted then, now they look back and see the rewards and say, wow, it was a great decision to buy then. So whenever people say, when is it the best time to buy? I always think of that graph. And I now start showing them that graph that shows them, hey, today is the right time. As a matter of fact, yesterday was the best time to buy. Today is a good time. However, tomorrow, we don't know.
the best time to buy real estate is today.
Today, yeah, yeah, yeah. And
The
and
worst
and
time to buy real estate was yesterday.
yeah,
The best time to buy real estate in the future. And I'm going to, this is good because it actually helps me to um, learn how to use the tool that we have because I want to download that presentation and I want to share just that slide with our audience so that they could have a view of this particular session that we're talking about, and I believe that's going to be session 7.
Hmm.
So give me one sec.
Not a problem. I think, as we navigate the markets and where the markets are, and I know right now in Northern Virginia, sometimes people say, hey, the way this market is changing, you just never know whether it's buyers, sellers, buyers. It really just depends on, sometimes it depends on the type of home, it depends on the price point. Of course, with a lot of entry level homes, you're finding that they still, some level of competition there. However, you do find that sellers are starting to ask for certain concessions. So we are seeing the change in the market, and at the end of the day, like we just said, the best time to really buy was yesterday. Today is a good time as well. However, we don't know about tomorrow.
Well, here's the graph that we have from the Cash Flow Breakfast Club that I believe you were talking about.
Yeah.
This graph to me actually points to everything. The gray lines that you see here are points of recession, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every time you see a gray line, that's when there was a recession, right? And we all know about the recession that happened from 2008 all the way through 2010. However, what this graph does show you in terms of dollars, how much the median sales home price has been in the United States,
Yeah.
right? How much the median home sale price has been in the United States. And what you see here from this graph is in 1970, you probably said that it was a good time to buy a property in 1960, right? Because you saw appreciation. However, in 1990, they said to you that property was overinflated, etc.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you had purchased in 1980, right, you would not have realized those gains. Well, you would have realized those gains, and you were saying to yourself, I am an absolute genius for having purchased that house.
Exactly.
And one of the things that is always beneficial is that numbers and graphs never lie. You can take this graph for yourself and you could actually go back and use it all over again. And you'll see here that in 2000, property prices were greater than they were in 1990, right? The only real time, as you look at over this 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, the only time that you have seen a real significant dip in home appreciation was, was during the 2005 through 2010 timeframe.
Yep.
That's the only time that you've really seen. And this was when I purchased my first home, right around 2000, and I got to ride the wave all the way up to about 2007. And that's when things have fallen apart. But what you had in 2007 and 2008, those events, as you can see here, over the last 50 years, we've had one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 recessions. And as you saw here, those recessions, they weren't for very long durations, which
Mm-hmm.
means that if you are trying to time the market, it's going to be very difficult for you to time the market because the time frame for the recession is so small.
Yeah.
think that this graph really speaks to why you buy real estate. You don't wait to buy real estate.
100%. And I think for me anyway, I'm more of a numbers person, and I prefer to look at data to really make decisions. I find that, having conversations is great, but when I look at actual data and analyze the data, I find that it's no brainer. I can sit and listen to people tell me their experiences on buying and holding real estate. However, I think data will always be the best explanation that I can, the best source that I can use to make that decision. But I didn't really want to spend so much time on that. I think one of the things that I really, really wanted to talk about today, Lee, is those succession plans. As business owners, one of the things or one of the responsibilities that we have as business owners is to come up with a succession plan of to say what's going to happen to my business, what's going to happen to my business when I die. We're all heading there at some point. So what's going to happen when that happens? What's going to happen when I'm no longer able to perform or to be there at my business, whether it's because of an illness, whether it's because you choose to retire, or even what's going to happen 5, 10 years down the line, right? So if there is no plan in place, what does that mean for your business?
Well, that's the uncomfortable conversation, and it's similar to the similar conversation that you would be having around insurance, right? One of the things that we have around insurance is that really you cannot convince a person to go out and buy insurance unless they've already convinced themselves that insurance is something that they need and they want to protect their loved ones,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I would say the exact same thing applies when you are, as a business owner, you are having that conversation. You are having that conversation about
What's next?
succession planning,
Yeah, yeah.
right? One of the things that I find to be the weirdest of them all is that um, one of the things that I find to be the weirdest of them all is that a business owner will shed blood, sweat, and tears to
Hmm.
establish their business, but they do not have a focus on how they're going to be able to exit that business, right? At the end of the day, all businesses, if they are viable, should be sold at a multiple of EBITDA,
Hmm.
interest before earnings before interest, tax, and amortization, right?
Yes.
It should be able to sell at a multiple of that number, right? But it has happened too often that we have had conversations with business owners and tried to ask that question. Can you tell me where your business is? They struggle to give you that answer. I
Yeah.
say this to say that I've been having a lot of conversations with fractional CFOs because in the revenue range that we're talking, a lot of these businesses between $1 and $5 million, they cannot support a dedicated CFO. So in lieu of a dedicated CFO, they go with a fractional CFO.
Hmm.
And many of the CFOs that I speak to, they have a process whereby they have to educate the business owner on their cash flows, right? And whether or not the business that they have is a healthy business,
Hmm.
right? That's a conversation that I have had multiple times with fractional CFOs. And that actually is a conversation that leads to the conversation that we are having around if your business has access to lines of credits and loans, right? That business is actually more valuable than if you are continuing to bootstrap that business using your personal resources.
Exactly. And like you said, I think part of just the responsibility of being a business owner is just ensure that all these things have been looked at and these things are in place. For example, there is a lot of businesses that cannot afford their own CFOs. Now, working with a fractional CFO allows you the opportunity for someone else to have a look at your books, your finances, and give you guidance and help you map out what is next, what comes next. And a lot of times, like you said, what is next could be or usually is yes, the business, this is where it is now, but how do we unlock the potentials that capital or access to funds would, the potential that access to funds would bring to the business? And this is where you are in a position to work with someone to help open up these opportunities, these potentials, so that your business can tap into those. And part of that is when you're able to tap into these things, it means that you are still working towards your succession plan. If your plan is to ensure that at a later stage you are able to sell off the business, these are steps that you need to make sure that you take and you do prior to that stage. However, if you are just surviving from day to day, you will miss out on the opportunity.
No, there are now people who specialize in um, working with business owners to get a
Mhm.
proper valuation for their business, and that's a conversation. From the conversations that I've had, your video is off or something. It's like really bad.
Oh, really?
Uh, the the business owner, if they're looking to exit the business, that's really a conversation that they should probably be having 5 years out
Yeah.
from the business, from their exit date at a minimum, because
Mm.
once they have done that inspection of their business, they can then determine whether or not, well, they can take actions to correct any negative findings that they have when they look at the business. Mike Gardner, who's a BNI member of mine, and when he gave his keynote, he said he has a lot of conversations with a lot of business owners where they're seeing the money coming in. They're like, I'm busy, I'm working, the revenues are coming in. But when they aren't having a strong handle on their expenses, is what the problem is, such that money is coming in at the top, you got your expenses, etc. What's being left over at the bottom? So their statement of cash flow should show them where this is what's coming in, this is what's going out, and then they should be able to look at the net.
Mm.
The problem that they have is that they see all of the money coming in, but they don't have a focus on what's going out, which means that at the end of the day, there aren't resources inside of the bank account that they can then use to grow the business.
Yeah.
I will be honest and say to you unequivocally right now is that if a business does not have access to line of credit, that business is on a diet. That business is probably more than on a diet. It's probably starving,
Mm.
because it's only through capital, having access to capital and leverage, that you will be able to grow your business.
True.
Right? So if you don't have access to a line of credit, you cannot be saying that your business is growing at the level that it should be growing,
Yeah.
right? But that's a very interesting topic, and I'm glad that you brought that over here to today's wonderful winning Wednesday. But as we get ready to close out, I wanted to share with our audience uh, a new process that we have, and that new process that we have is a 60-second scan to determine what does your business qualify from a credit perspective, right? We have said a million times over, we have had conversations, we have been on stages where we say to business owners, show me your hands who in this room is a small business owner. And we would see hands go up. But then the second question would be, can you tell me what is your Paydex or your IntelliScore? And that's where I get a bunch of blank stares,
Mm.
right? But they are in business, and in certain instances, these business owners have really successful businesses, but they don't really have a handle on the financials, the in and outs. That's the reason why they need a CFO. So what we have here today is the ability to provide in 60 seconds or less a view of what your business is, where your business stand, right? So that you know, well, what's going on with my business.
Mm.
And I think that that's one of the best things that we could do. We also offer a service where we will pull your Experian credit report for you, right? We will pull your Experian credit report and review that report with you so that you can have an understanding of where your business stand. And one of the reasons why Experian is, well, there's Experian commercial and Dun and Bradstreet, right, is because lenders are pulling your Experian business credit report just the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one that you want to look at, especially if you're going to be looking for lines of credit as well as bank loans.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lee. I think that's very helpful for a lot of business owners. Just the ability to check this in their own private space. I know that whenever we talk about money needing funding or capital, sometimes some people prefer not to, nobody wants to share that type of details. But this tool allows you to scan in, well, allows you to input your information and get some type of feedback, and you can always contact us to walk you through or to discuss it afterwards, because at the end of the day, for you to get assistance, you have to be in a position where you're able to at least raise your hand and say, I do need the assistance, this is where I'm at and this is where I'm looking to go. So thank you very much for sharing that, and thank you to our audience who've been here with us, who were able to be part of the conversation. If you do have any other questions, please don't ever hesitate to contact us. If you want to be, or if you're willing to be part of the discussion, or to come on here and share a little bit about yourself, your business, what you do, please scan the top right hand barcode that will allow you to fill out a short form, and you can be part of the conversation. Come here and present with us. Is there anything else that I'm leaving, Lee? Anything else?
No, we're looking for guests. We created this platform so that we could have a conversation with other small business owners to understand their experiences,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
We want to understand their experiences because one of the things that can happen is when you are a CEO of a business, there is something called isolation at the top, right? And fortunately for me, I don't have to do a lot of explaining to you because you are running and managing our business together. But let's just say you weren't involved in the business, you didn't have an understanding of how it works, etc. Who would I be able to talk to about the highs and the lows of our business?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm finding that a lot of CEOs, everyone is coming to them and asking them questions or looking for them to solve the problem.
Yeah.
Where does the CEO go when they need a problem solved? And most small business, they don't have CFOs, they don't have COOs, etc., who they can basically question their ideas. They don't have a board of directors. What I'm finding is that this is an opportunity for other small businesses to come here and share their stories, but also get feedback. It's almost like a 1 million cups, but every week on a Wednesday evening,
Mm. No,
right?
that makes sense. Communities are able to help each other out and share knowledge. So
Hmm.
get in touch. It's very difficult to run your business in isolation, right? You want to surround yourself with other like-minded people or peers whom you can learn from, and you can also share your own experiences so that everybody can learn. So all of you who are interested or who may be, you know, keen on it, please do scan the barcode and get in touch with us. Other than that, thank you for being with us. We appreciate your presence. We appreciate the questions that you send. We appreciate the calls that you make to have those conversations with us. And we will see you again next week on another wonderful Winning Wednesday. And see you all next week.
All right. Bye for now. Enjoy the 4th of July, the fireworks. It's not going to be terribly hot, so everyone should be able to have a good time. So we're out for now. We'll see you next week. And take care until then.
Until then, thank you.